The air raid siren cut through the night like a scythe, sending Rosalie Kensington scrambling from her bed. 3 years into the war, the wail no longer paralyzed her with fear. It had become merely another interruption to what little sleep she managed these days. "Not again," she murmured, fumbling in the darkness for her dressing gown and gas mask. Through the blackout curtains, searchlights already swept the London sky, their beams cutting through clouds like accusing fingers. Rosalie grabbed her medical kit. As a volunteer nurse, she had learned to sleep fully clothed during the worst of the bombing campaigns. Tonight would be no different from countless others, tending the wounded, comforting the dying, maintaining a professional distance that kept her sane. War had taught her that attachment was a luxury, and love, particularly now, was a foolish indulgence that only guaranteed heartbreak. Her parents' deaths during the first months of the Blitz had cemented this belief. Their bodies had been pulled from the rubble of what had once been their modest family home, their hands still clasped together even in death. Rosalie had stood numb as the rescue workers had remarked on the tragedy and beauty of it all. Beauty? There was nothing beautiful about war or the love it destroyed. "Keep your head down and your heart locked away," she whispered to herself, a mantra repeated with every raid. It had served her well so far, allowing her to function when others fell apart. Outside, the December air bit through her clothes. The distant drone of German bombers grew louder, punctuated by the staccato bursts of anti-aircraft fire. Rosalie ran towards St. Thomas' Hospital, where the wounded would soon overwhelm the wards. London had endured over a year of constant bombing, and tonight promised to be particularly severe. The first blast hit 3 streets away, the concussion nearly knocking her off her feet. Rosalie pressed against a wall, counting to 10 before continuing her journey. The hospital was only 2 blocks more. She could make it. She always did. The second explosion came much closer. The ground heaved beneath her feet, and something sharp and hot stung her cheek. Disoriented, Rosalie stumbled toward an underground shelter, the sign barely visible through the smoke and dust that now choked the street. "In here, miss! Quickly!" A warden's voice cut through the chaos, and Rosalie felt herself being pulled into the shelter's entrance. The door slammed behind her, muffling the thunderous explosions above. Inside, civilians huddled together on benches. Children whimpered in their mothers' arms while elderly couples clutched each other's hands. Rosalie felt the familiar pang of isolation, that perpetual state of being surrounded yet utterly alone. "You're bleeding." The warden handed her a handkerchief. Head wounds always look worse than they are. Rosalie pressed the cloth to her cheek. "I need to get to the hospital." "Not until the all-clear sounds. We've got a down plane just west of here." "The whole block's gone up." "A down plane? British or German?" Did it matter? Someone's son, brother, beloved was burning in those flames. She closed her eyes against the thought. Attachment was weakness. Love had no place in war. The raid lasted 3 hours. When the all-clear finally sounded, Rosalie emerged into a transformed landscape. Buildings she had passed daily now stood as skeletal ruins, their insides exposed to the pre-dawn air like anatomical displays. She navigated around craters and fire hoses, the smell of cordite and burning wood heavy in her lungs. St. Thomas was in chaos when she arrived. Stretchers lined the corridors, and medical staff moved with urgent precision between the wounded. "Kensington, thank God," Dr. Winters called out when he spotted her. "We've got 3 surgeries happening simultaneously and more incoming. The RAF boys shot down a German bomber. Crew survived, but they're in bad shape." Rosalie nodded, washing her hands in a basin of rapidly cooling water. "Where do you need me?" "Theatre 2. The pilot needs immediate attention." In the surgical theater, Rosalie found herself assisting with the German pilot's operation. He was unconscious, his flight uniform cut away to reveal severe burns and shrapnel wounds. Dr. Adams worked methodically to extract metal fragments from the man's torso. "Nurse, more light," Adams instructed, and Rosalie adjusted the lamp to better illuminate the field. In the harsh surgical light, she found herself studying the pilot's face. He couldn't have been more than 25, with strong features that pain had not entirely distorted. This was the enemy, one of those who dropped bombs on her city, who had perhaps contributed to her parents' deaths. Yet, unconscious and wounded, he seemed merely human. "What happens to him after surgery?" she asked. "POW camp, if he survives," Adams replied. "Hand me those forceps." As dawn broke, Rosalie finally found a moment to tend to her own wound. In the bathroom mirror, she saw the small cut on her cheekbone, already scabbing over. It would heal without a scar, unlike the deeper wounds that the war had inflicted on her spirit. 3 days later, Rosalie was assigned to the hospital's small ward for enemy combatants. 4 German airmen occupied the beds, all in various states of recovery. The pilot she had assisted with in surgery lay in the bed nearest the window, his eyes now open and alert, watching her movements with quiet intensity. "Wasser, bitte," he said, his voice hoarse. Rosalie poured water from a pitcher and helped him drink. His hand brushed against hers, warm, alive, human. She withdrew quickly. "My name is Zimmerman," he said in careful, accented English. "Zane Albrecht." "I'm Nurse Kensington," she replied formally, checking his chart. "Your fever has broken." "That's good." "You helped save my life," he said. "I remember your eyes above your mask in surgery." Rosalie maintained her professional demeanor. "We treat all patients the same, regardless of uniform. But we are enemies, yes." A sad smile touched his lips. "It is strange to receive kindness from those I was sent to destroy." "I don't destroy or save based on nationality," she answered, though the words felt hollow. Hadn't she just days ago thought of him as the enemy? Medicine doesn't recognize borders. Over the next week, Rosalie found herself lingering in the POW ward. Zane Albrecht was unlike what propaganda had led her to expect. He spoke of his home in Munich, of studying architecture before the war, of his reluctance to join the Luftwaffe. During quiet moments, when the other patients slept, he would sketch buildings on scraps of paper, visions of what he hoped to create after the war ended. "This is the library I was designing when I was drafted," he said, showing her a detailed drawing. "I believe spaces for knowledge should be both beautiful and functional." Against her better judgment, Rosalie found herself sharing small pieces of her own life, her training as a nurse, her parents' deaths, even her love of poetry. "You see?" Zane said one evening as she changed his bandages. "We are not so different, you and I. We both create, you heal bodies, I would build spaces. We both have lost much to this madness." "But you fly bombers over my city," she replied, the familiar wall of distrust rising again. His eyes met hers, unflinching. "And your planes bomb my country." "I did not choose this war, Rosalie." "Did you?" It was the first time he had used her given name, and something shifted inside her. No, she had not chosen war. No one she knew had wanted this. That night, an unusually heavy raid forced hospital staff and patients into the basement shelter. Rosalie found herself sitting beside Zane, who had been helped down by orderlies. In the dim light, surrounded by frightened whispers and the muffled sounds of explosions above, he quietly recited Rilke in German, then translated for her, "Love consists in this, that two solitudes protect and touch and greet each other." His hand found hers in the darkness, and she did not pull away. When orders came that Zane would be transferred to a POW camp the following week, Rosalie felt a sharp pain that startled her with its intensity. On his last night at the hospital, she brought him a small parcel of bread and cheese she had saved from her rations. "A poor feast for your last night," she said. "The company makes it a banquet," he replied. They sat by the window, watching searchlights comb the sky, though no bombers came that night. "I have something for you," Zane said, pressing a small object into her palm. It was a ring, crudely fashioned but beautiful in its way. "I made this from a piece of my downed aircraft. The orderly who brought my personal effects helped me file it down." Rosalie stared at the metal circle. "I can't accept this. Please." So that not everything that came from that plane brought destruction. His eyes held hers. Some small piece of it should create something good. The next morning, he was gone, transported to a camp in northern England. Rosalie slipped the ring onto a chain around her neck, hidden beneath her uniform. Weeks passed, then months. She wrote letters that could not be sent, kept track of the war's progress with growing concern, and felt the weight of the ring against her skin with each passing day. In April 1944, St. Thomas received a new group of patients, British soldiers wounded during a training exercise. Among them was Captain James Porter, who recognized the name on Rosalie's badge. "Kensington? I know a chap at Fenwick POW camp who speaks of a nurse Kensington. German fellow, architect before the war. Helps us with translation since he speaks better English than most of the guards." Rosalie's heart stuttered. "Albrecht? Zane Albrecht." Porter nodded. "That's the one. Decent sort, for a German. Always sketching buildings and bridges." How is he?" she asked, struggling to maintain her composure. "Well enough, last I saw. Asked me to look you up if I ever got to London. Said to tell you he still believes what he told you about solitudes." That night, Rosalie wrote a letter and, for the first time, sent it through official channels to Fenwick POW camp, addressed to prisoner Zane Albrecht. She included no personal sentiments that might be censored, only a quote from Shakespeare, "Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds." 2 weeks later, an answer came, "Nurse Kensington. Your literary recommendation was most educational. I continue my studies of English architecture with great interest. The cathedral you mentioned stands despite the storm. Regards. Z.A." Their correspondence continued in this veiled manner throughout 1944. As Allied forces pushed through Europe, Rosalie tracked their progress while maintaining her duties at the hospital. The nightly bombing of London had largely ceased, replaced by the occasional VO-1 and VO-2 rocket attacks. In February 1945, a letter arrived from Captain Porter rather than Zane. "Miss Kensington. Your friend asked me to inform you that he, along with other POWs with technical skills, has been assigned to a rebuilding project. He cannot write but wanted you to know that cathedrals still stand. I will forward any messages when possible. Sincerely, Captain J. Porter." The silence that followed was deafening. Rosalie worked through the Victory in Europe celebrations in May with a hollow feeling, watching couples embrace in the streets while she fingered the metal ring beneath her uniform. The war in Europe had ended, but what of Zane? Had he been repatriated to a divided Germany? Would she ever know what became of him? In July 1945, Rosalie received notice that her nursing skills were needed at a rehabilitation centre for returned servicemen in Kent. She accepted the transfer, hoping that a change of scene might ease the persistent ache in her chest. The countryside was healing from war more quickly than the cities. Green had returned to bomb-cratered fields, and the absence of air raid sirens made the nights unnervingly quiet. Rosalie threw herself into her work, helping men learn to walk with prosthetic limbs or regain the use of damaged hands. One afternoon in late August, as she supervised a patient's walking exercises in the garden, the center's administrator approached. "Nurse Kensington, there's someone asking for you at the front gate. A foreigner. Says he has architectural plans to discuss." Rosalie's breath caught. It couldn't be. She walked slowly to the entrance, afraid to hope yet unable to stop herself. And there he stood, thinner than she remembered, in civilian clothes that hung loosely on his frame, but unmistakably Zane. His eyes found hers across the garden path. "They told me I might find you here," he said simply. "How?" she began, stopping a careful distance away. "Captain Porter. He arranged for me to join the reconstruction effort rather than immediate repatriation. Some of us with technical skills were granted temporary work permits." He hesitated. "I can rebuild in the country I once bombed. It is a kind of atonement." "And after?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "That depends," he said, taking a step closer. "I notice you wear something around your neck." Rosalie's hand went to the chain. She pulled it out, revealing the crude metal ring that had rested against her heart for over a year. "I kept it safe," she said. "As I hoped." Zane closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. "When I made that ring, I believed it might be the only good thing to come from all this destruction. I was wrong." "What else came from it?" she asked. "The understanding that love can grow in the most unlikely places," he answered. "That what divides us is temporary, but what connects us is permanent." In the golden August light, surrounded by the evidence of war's damage and healing's promise, Rosalie finally allowed herself to believe what her heart had known for months. The walls she had built after her parents' deaths crumbled like the bombed buildings of London, structures that could be rebuilt, stronger than before. "I once thought love had no place in wartime," she said. "That attachment only guaranteed loss." "And now?" Zane asked, his eyes searching hers. "Now I think perhaps love is the only thing that makes sense of all this senselessness." She slipped the ring from its chain and held it in her palm. "From destruction to creation." Zane took the ring and gently slid it onto her finger. "It will not be easy. There will be those who cannot forget we were enemies." "We were never enemies," Rosalie said with certainty. "We were just people caught on opposite sides of madness." 6 months later, in a small country church, Rosalie and Zane exchanged vows before a gathering of those who had helped their unlikely love survive: Captain Porter, Dr. Winters, and even some of Rosalie's patients. She wore a dress made from parachute silk, and on her finger gleamed a ring fashioned from a downed aircraft, a symbol of how love could transform even the instruments of war into tokens of peace. As they stepped out into the spring sunshine as husband and wife, the scars of war still visible on the landscape around them, Zane leaned close and whispered, "The bombers brought me to you." Perhaps they were not entirely instruments of destruction after all. Rosalie smiled, thinking of the buildings he would design, the children they might have, the future stretching before them, all possible because they had found each other amid chaos, and their love had survived the Blitz.